Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another very special episode of the Sioux Empire Podcast. I am your host, as always, Robert Mehling, and with me, as always, is co-host Seth Glover.
Hey everybody, it's February. Do you have a Valentine's? Or a Valentine? Do you want one? The Sioux Empire Podcast wants to be your Valentine. Hey, what up? It's Natasha.
Great transition. And also joining us is Natasha to the Estes.
I have a Valentine also. I could be my own Valentine, but I've got a Valentine.
And joining us also is her Valentine, I assume.
Hello.
Dustin Burry.
Hi. How's everyone doing?
And also with us from New Colossus is Polly Dean.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Do you regret it yet? I usually ask that the first 5 minutes
Not
in.
yet.
And then at the
the
15-minute
intro-
mark is usually when people start to break. So
The intro piano medley going on there was interesting, but no, I don't regret it.
interesting. I always like that. That's a good cover word for get me the hell out of here.
We've had someone explain that on the podcast, I believe.
What have I done?
Yeah.
I believe it's when you don't have anything to say, but you think something is fucked up, so you're just like, well, sorry.
That's
say-
interesting.
Well, that's an interesting perspective.
That's interesting that you collect fingernails as I slowly back towards the door in a non-threatening manner.
I don't collect fingernails, but is it weird to collect hedgehog spines?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Depends on if you eat it.
If it's your hedgehog. No, why would you eat them? Do you eat fingernails that you collect? Is that a common theme?
No,
Is that the
you
next
eat
go-to?
the hedgehog first and roadkill or something.
No, your pet. Why would you collect them off a dead animal? Like they
It's that much cooler. Like it's
Well, it was great to be here, guys.
All right. So now we're actually going to talk to Paula here about what she came to talk about.
Oh, we're not talking about radioactive water anymore?
No.
You can if
No,
you can work
we
it in
cut
there,
that short for
don't
time.
know,
If you can tie that in to human trafficking, though, that'd be kind of
Oh, man.
like metal.
I don't, yeah.
yeah, that's a little too heavy. Like on radium on a periodic table. That's
Boom.
boom.
Boom. Nice.
Chemistry. All right. Anyway. I'm sorry.
I think that's physics. Or no, you're talking yeah. Sorry, Paula. Please. You're from New Colossus.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about New Colossus. What's your organization? What are you guys advocating for? Tell us about yourself.
Okay. So, the New Colossus is an anti-human trafficking organization here in Sioux Falls. Myself and then Ashley, the other co-founder, who is actually, she just had a baby on Thursday. So,
Aw,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Congratulations and welcome to the world.
Yeah.
Ashley's kid.
Yeah.
Did you
so,
say on Thursday?
Yeah.
That was my birthday.
Yay!
So we have been kind of studying and working in the realm of, human trafficking and stopping human trafficking for 10 years. And we went to, not together, but we have both been to Thailand, Cambodia. She was in Africa for a while studying it there. And came back here and realized that it's actually a problem here too. Not just, all these other countries
Absolutely.
where people think it's happening. It's actually happening here too. And so we started working we were working with another organization, but the New Colossus itself, the director of that retired and kind of stepped away from it for a while, and we were going to be done. We're like, well, we've done our time, we did our advocacy work, but then people kept calling, and they were like, will you come talk to this person? Will you come present at this group? And so we're like, I guess we probably should do it, and it'll be like our part-time little volunteer gig, and now...
How'd that work out?
And it's somehow morphed into every single morning. We're like, okay, where are we going now? And how are we going to get to this place? And the New Colossus in April has been around for 5 years.
Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah. So, I worked as a social worker at Children's Inn for a while as
Okay.
well. And we were working with victims for the first, couple years. And at one point, we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, there has to be a better way to do this. It's like we're literally, it's like this giant fire and we're trying to put it out with a little bottle of water. So, there has to be a better way to fight this, and there has to be a way to prevent it. And that's where we really made our mission, was the prevention of sex trafficking. And it's not necessarily the sex trafficking in and of itself is like this sexy issue that everyone wants to talk about and everyone wants to be involved in it, but the prevention piece isn't necessarily the fun part. Because they're not going out and they're not rescuing people, they're not, putting their lives in danger necessarily, and so it's not as, exciting as some of that other stuff, but we've seen huge success in it. We go to schools and we do presentations on like social media safety. We talk about what actually sex trafficking is. We say the words sex trafficking. I mean, the first time we did it, I'm like, the kids come in and they sit down and I'm like, oh, they're just babies and I have to say the word sex and this is so awkward, but I get up there and I just throw it out there and talk to them about it because they know more than we think they know. I mean, they're seeing it. They're
Sure.
it. They know exactly what we're talking about. So
It's always true for
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like, you're too young.
yeah, and they know all
And
these
then
things.
they tell you something. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
oh,
you're like,
God.
how'd you know that? On the internet.
Yeah. Terrifying.
Snapchat, Instagram, yeah.
No more YouTube for you, man.
Oh, YouTube is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
dangerous.
yeah, on all the time in my house. But, yeah, so we made it our mission to really, and so we're in schools, like I said, but we also do businesses. Like we have done a lot of trainings at like the fraud investigation units at banks, trying to tackle it from that avenue. Like here's how traffickers might be spending money. Here's how their transaction traits might look. Then we do first responders, a lot of ER trainings and doctors and nurses, OB clinics, stuff like that. Law enforcement. And then just recently, the last year or so, and then this year we're really focusing on our work in the juvenile detention center.
Sure.
And then Lutheran Social Services has like an inpatient facility basically, and it's 12 to 17-year-old girls that are, going through maybe depression, self-mutilate, those kind of things, eating disorders, but they're all like extremely vulnerable to this kind of exploitation. And they're in there not for trafficking, but once we start going in there and talking to them, they actually have stories where, we asked them at one point a couple weeks ago, we're like, after you've heard what we have to say and we're talking about trafficking, how many of you think that you were maybe in a relationship with someone that was a trafficker? And half of them raised their hands.
Wow.
Because they were like, there was one girl telling us a story that, yeah, he would bring me flowers and he'd buy me all these things, but I knew that when he would do that, I was definitely going to have sex with him that night. And then it became, and then I would have to do it with his friends and stuff like that. And so
Ooh.
it just morphs into trafficking without ever, like, okay, now I'm going to traffic you, okay? Like, it just morphs, and then they feel as though they don't
And
have
that's
that.
probably
Yeah.
an important distinction that, I've become more aware of, especially as researching your organization and a little bit of background. But I think a lot of people, when they picture, you say, we prevent human trafficking, what they picture is, immigrants that don't speak
Yeah.
English being brought here in a container from a foreign country.
Yeah.
And it's like Hollywood drug lord type giant
Yeah.
operation things. But the whole enterprise of human trafficking in America is a much darker, smaller, closer to home thing than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not necessary. It would make our job 10 times easier if there was like a specific demographic that was targeted, or
Yeah.
But it's definitely every race. It's every it's all the sexes. It's men. It's women. It's boys, girls. It doesn't really have a specific target for their victimization. So it could literally be anyone. There's obvious numbers and things like that contribute to the vulnerability, like being in foster care and things like those kids are extremely vulnerable. And people or kids who have experienced prior sexual abuse, that's a huge factor as well. But we've also had victims that grew up in a loving home with a mom and a dad and, dinner around the table on Sunday, but there's just some vulnerability in there somewhere, and they get in that relationship online and they feel like trapped in a sense.
Do you find that that's common, that online, because that surprises me, that it really is that people go online and kidnap or just get them involved in a relationship that then becomes...
Yeah, it's mainly the relationship.
Bait
Okay.
them out there with
Yeah.
a plane ticket, and then
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
Okay.
Because
yeah.
there was that story with the South Dakota doctor who was talking
Yep.
with this girl from Georgia, I think it was, who was 14, 16, the age of consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
proposed. I think that's what she said. But then it all kind of fell through. It seemed.
Yeah, that case was
because she wouldn't come back and
and so
testify.
they lost her for a while and.
So that's I guess that's. And
Yeah.
but I think that there's probably a theme with at least the perpetrators that they, I don't know, had some sort of issues of some sort.
Yeah.
But that's, no, that's certainly the way that I thought of human trafficking when I first heard it. So to provide that awareness of what it is and what it can be.
Yeah, well,
very beneficial.
And that's one of the things when we talk to kids about that, we're like, listen, like this Hollywood view of what trafficking is with chains and cages and things like that and barcodes and all. It's kind of sensationalizing it.
Yeah.
Human trafficking is a bad enough issue in and of itself. So I feel like our job is the first 20 minutes is just trying to dispel what they've already heard about trafficking. Like, listen, it's not stealing kids from their front yards while they're playing, and it's not necessarily. There are obvious kidnapping stories and things like that.
Sure.
But majority of what we're seeing is that relationship based online, and there was a stat that we posted a little while ago, which we're not really fond of certain statistics and numbers because it's like it'd
be so hard to tell.
Yeah, it's just hard to tell and who made that number and who but. They were saying that NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has seen an 800% increase in sex trafficking due to technology.
And that was one of my questions eventually here was, do you think that we're just more aware of it, or do you think that it's growing because of technology? It sounds like you're saying maybe both a little bit.
Yeah, it probably is a little bit of both. I mean, it's always happened. I think the use of the internet has just given them these exploiters this tool that where they can reach that many more kids, that many more vulnerable people so fast and not have to leave their home. I mean, they're sitting on their computer or their phone and carrying on all these relationships, so it makes it a little easier for them. Same with scheduling those dates and things like that. It's all online and it's so easy. It's not necessarily putting people out on a track or having them walk up and down and go up to cars. It's not necessarily what we see, especially in Sioux Falls. We don't see that. It's all online, and it's done so quickly and easily. But I do agree that maybe it's always happened, and maybe we're just more aware of it now.
But yeah, I could see that where technology has really exploded it and made it more accessible and easier to conceal. And
and a lot, when we go speak to schools and parents and stuff, the main questions obviously are how do I protect my kids? What about social media? What do I do? What do I watch for? And I always say, I wish that I had here's what to watch for. Don't let them have this one app.
And that was my next question, was if you had any advice to just the general public, what you'd want them to know.
It's you have to just, if you're going to give your kid a phone or an iPad or a computer, that's not just a matter of don't do anything bad. Google the apps that are coming out. Read reviews for apps and things like that. If your kid asks for an app, I know my 12-year-old has a phone and she thinks it's so annoying because I have this thing where whenever she downloads an app, it comes to me and I have to approve it. And she thinks it's so annoying.
Yeah.
So it's getting filters for Snapchat.
Just because it's easier through technology doesn't mean that technology also doesn't provide good enough barriers if you're going to take, actually do the research.
Yeah.
But, go ahead and touch.
No, I'm bookmarking it, so I'm not interrupting with. Wait a minute.
I already
practice
forgot
forming my
because I'm
thoughts
wondering what
first,
you're going to
but
talk
that's
about.
hard. No, I was just saying if we're talking about preventive things or even just something like that. One thing that I know helps is if the parents aren't really judgmental. If they're well, you are capable of making your own decision, so don't make them feel stupid, because then they'll feel ashamed for making a bad decision and say not this always works or whatever, but be we always love you, and if you make a mistake, we'll still take you back. We're not going to kick you out of the house because you did a dumbass thing, and you have, essentially still some resources back home if you are stuck somewhere and they have manipulated you so much that you are completely dependent on them. You can always come back home and say, I I need money for a plane ticket to get home. I'm sorry I screamed at you. I mean, you didn't even have
Yeah.
to say, I'm sorry I screamed at you and left with the guy of my dreams because you don't understand, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, come back home. We'll help you. We'll, essentially we'll still protect you. That's what, the family does. And not just be like, well, you suck. That's what you get. You made your bed. You sleep in it. Play yourself up by your bootstraps, you dumb bitch. I mean, who does that other than, some people I know of?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And we tell the kid, like, we tell parents too, it's like, the box, the social media box, like Pandora's box has been opened. Like, the kids have it, it's here, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So, we're not, keeping our kids naive is not keeping them safe. Like, just not talking about it. And so we tell parents, they're like, how do I protect my kids and all this stuff? I'm like, actually, it's pretty easy. Like, talk to them. Literally talk to them. Talk to them about not only trafficking, but talk to them about school, talk to them about their relationships and things like that. And, yes, you're a parent and you're an authoritative figure in their life, but also, like, you're a supportive figure, just like you said. Talk to them about what's going on and be open to that. There's one victim who now travels and she's written books and everything, but she grew up and her dad worked at a church and her mom was extremely strict. And she always said, and one of the threats was, if you have sex before marriage, you're dead to me. Like, you're done. You can't. And so she was raped and again got involved in this life. And she's like, I can't tell my mom because of this strict, And so, yes, you have to be strict, but you also have to be available to, if they come to you, just like you said, if they come to you with any sort of things that are going on. And I think that's a lot of parenting sometimes is more of the, here's the rules, follow them, but not necessarily so you broke this rule, let's talk about why. Why did you do this? Why did you feel like you needed to do that? And that's a lot of our work at JDC. We're so passionate about the kids that are in the juvenile detention center, because you don't just become, addicted to a drug at 16. You don't just skip school because it's fun. You don't just get in fights and get assault charges because you're bored. There's something else going on there. And it's like we're putting these kids in this fishbowl and just making them wait there until they're like sent to prison or sent to jail. And the reoffending rates are so high because, like we were talking about earlier, where you put a label on a kid, like the smoking thing.
Yeah.
You throw a charge at them and now they're labeled as like, a bad kid, and then they're just going to keep...
And the system is almost built to perpetuate that because, more raw material for the system to suck up.
Mm-hmm. There was a girl that we worked with who was in the juvenile detention center, and she was there on a drug charge. And we started talking about trafficking, and her eyes welled up, and she started crying, and we were like, okay, this girl, something's going on here. So one of us stepped out and chatted with her, and it turns out that, yes, she, was running drugs, but it was because it was something that her trafficker was making her do. And she ran away from home because she was experiencing some problems at home, ran away to this trafficker, and he's like, I have a safe place for you, you can stay with me, I'll take care of you, all those things that they say. But then it turned into, okay, you're staying here, you're going to have to help out a little bit. And so then started the drug running. And then she said, before I knew it, then I would have to have sex with clients at the house for money to stay there, and he would keep all the money. And we said, listen, and so this was a Thursday. On Tuesday, she had court, and where she was facing these charges, and we're like, you have to tell your parole officer, you have to tell someone. And she goes, where do I even start? Where do I start? Like, I'm already, have this charge. If I just get it over with and serve my time, I can get out. But it's like they don't feel open enough to even come out and say, I was being forced to, I was being forced to, because they feel as though they don't have any options. They can't tell people the truth because they're like, where do I start? No one's going to believe me.
When someone does come forward like that, do you find the system is receptive to them, or do you get more of a law and order thing where they're
getting that, law enforcement is great. They are so, they're being so proactive with it, and they're educating themselves on it, but unfortunately, a lot of it is these victims don't self-identify. They're not like, but I'm a trafficking victim, because they're groomed from the beginning. don't tell anyone, whether it's through threats, don't tell anyone because I'll do X, Y,
Part of
Z.
the insidious nature of it
Yeah.
is it's built to conceal itself.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, go ahead and say it. No one's going to believe you because you're a drug dealer or you're a prostitute. You're getting these charges. No one's going to believe you. You're just a criminal now. So a lot of times they don't self-identify. So the cops can be sitting in the room with them and, saying like, listen, I know you're not choosing this. Please, like, do you have a pimp? Do you have a do you know what trafficking is? But they have to be able to come forward and say it. I think that, unfortunately, we're just really stuck in our ways with the whole juvenile detention. So, like, it's just this program that it's always been this way, and to change it is so much work, and and I feel like we're kind of stuck in that. Whereas I'm like, why aren't we? These kids are in here all day, and the things they go through school and stuff like that, but some of the activities, I'm like, why aren't we teaching them a trade, or why aren't we like talking about the root issues of why they're here and things like that? But it's not therapeutic like that. It's
feel like the
jail, essentially.
Positions that have the power to make the changes to that sort of procedure and protocols get to that position, and that's their end of the road career cush position where they're not motivated for change. They just got there and they want this, and this is how it is. But yeah, I wish there were motivated people in there in the the court system that wanted to make change. But it seems like it's a lot of. I got in here. It's going to be a lot of work to change and status quo, and I worked a long time, and I had to work in the system to get move up and reach this position, and then you're probably going to have to work with your peers to get things changed, and they're trying to get them changed. So it's I hate how that is, and I wish that there was a little bit more motivation to improve the system and change it, and not
I mean, it's just better all around. It's like rehabilitation versus, and obviously some of those kids did awful things and they deserve to be in there because they did something really bad and they have to there's consequences for your behavior. But why aren't we asking why? Why did you do this? Why do you feel that that was your only option at that time? But
Natasha.
But I don't know if we're also.
I'm like, I don't know if I need to call on you.
No, I mean I don't want to be like that thing person because.
She's talking about me.
No.
When I used to cut it. Anyway, go ahead. You had your hand raised.
No, but if we're talking about the whole change the system, I mean it's repulsive that people are like, oh, that's too much work, so I've been this way, blah 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 blah, and then at the same time be like, well, we've got to help our own before we help anyone from any other country, blah blah. I'm just like, oh, you piece of hypocritical shit. But also, if as far as one thing that I think should change is with the labeling things like that, and we should be teaching them a trade kind of thing, is if they do have the drug charges or stuff, no one will hire them because they're charges they could be bad for business, or they can't even get a place to live kind of thing. So they don't have a place to live and a place to get money and be on their own. How can you expect them to want to at least leave? Because it's like, well, this sucks, but at least I got food and a place to sleep. And
yeah, exactly. And so leaving that life is sometimes harder because then you're right, they have charges that they can't find safe housing. The lack of safe housing for anyone in this community if they have any sort of charge, and then plus finding a job. If you have any sort of conviction on your record, and a lot of times the trafficker almost makes that happen. So it's just like he or she works so hard to really take all the options off the table. Okay, you have charges now. Tattoos are kind of a common thing. They get a bunch of tattoos and stuff like that, and that's the sort of branding that's in there. And they get out, and it's like, now where do I even start?
Drug charges, you can't get student loans to go back to college.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, that's the people that are in these shitty situations are it's perpetuated by the system, not resolved, not reconciled, they're not helped.
Yeah.
You're the victim, and then you're the victim of the system. that's how it goes, and that's that sucks.
Yeah, and so there's a bill right now going through, and it expunges the records for minors if they have been found to be a victim of human trafficking.
Okay.
So from but up to 18, and it's awesome. It's a great step.
Sure.
We're getting there. But a lot of the victims that we see aren't kids. Their victimization started when they were kids, but they're coming to us 20s, 30s, 40s, when they're like, all right, I've had enough, but now I have all these charges. So we're going to work for that. I want that to eventually happen to where if they come forward and they say, listen, I was being trafficked, here's my trafficker, here's all these things I had to do. And it's going to be a lot of work. But I think if we do that for minors, I think we should extend that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
At some point, eventually.
So, do you think, or do you know, or would it be that a stipulation would be that there'd have to be a conviction from that?
Yeah,
sort of
I don't know,
assistance?
because it's definitely
where...
and so there's going to have to be something right there for any lawmaker to get on board with it, because otherwise it's this slippery slope of,
everybody argues.
I want all these
things.
things. I want all these charges expunged, but I don't want to tell you anything about who trafficked me or where it was. So I don't know if it's necessarily a conviction, but maybe at least coming forward and giving up their perpetrator or something like that. But yeah, there has to be some sort of accountability in that, just for lawmakers to get behind it.
And what if they, come, report it post-mortem or posthumously, after the perpetrator is dead, just because that's... I mean, what if they can't gather the evidence, but it happened?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of a scary aspect of it for the victims, for the people that are in the system and have to deal with that, but at least, yeah, like you're saying, there's progress of some sort, and, new Colossus has been around for 5 years, so I'm sure you're part of this change because it's just happening.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic work. You're making a difference. And
Yes,
here,
thank you.
that's awesome though that you went, studied it and
Yeah. And
that's...
it's one of those things where when how you mentioned helping our own and stuff like that. We're in that, but then we also kind of see the opposite of that, where people are, again, going to Thailand and going to all these other countries and helping trafficking victims and trying to fight trafficking and rescuing people, and it's it's happening here too. It's just it's not as big and in your face and stuff like that. So that's been another one of our, just that awareness piece. And a lot of times people are awareness isn't enough. They want to be on those front lines rescuing people, and that word is nails on a chalkboard to me, rescue. But it's awareness is so important and so vital, and it kind of gets a bad rap for people who are well, we can sit around and talk about it all day, but what are we going to do about it? And it's actually sitting around talking about it is...
It's the whole idea.
Yeah, it's the whole idea. Because there's still people in our state who don't think trafficking happens here, or they think it is Taken, and
yeah,
and
the Hollywood version.
Yeah, there's the dad with a particular set of skills is gonna come and save people, but it's not
it's a fantasy.
On your website, did you say what inspired you to go and visit those places? Was it a documentary or a video? Or,
I did. So there was a documentary that was shown called "Sex and Money," and it really profiled it. In America. And then the organization that I was working for was taking an immersion trip, they called it, and then you work with organizations there. And it was a good trip in the sense that it really opened my eyes, and I learned about it, and I learned also what works and what doesn't work in other countries versus, the United States. And so there you go to bars and you go to the red light district and you can talk to the girls that are working and, offer them a way out and offer them a job. Whereas here, it's much more criminally based. I mean, with human trafficking comes drugs 95% of the time. I mean, there's going to be some sort of drug trafficking or drug dealing. And so these traffickers have a lot more to lose in the United States. If they get busted, they're going to jail. They're getting life sentences. They're not getting a slap on the wrist or, slap on the hand and getting sent back out with a fine or something. So it's much more criminally based, and that's why it's so... it's just more hidden here, and it's just a bigger issue here because it's entangled with all these other things. But
Yeah, I think that's...
I'm glad I went. I really am glad I went, but there's plenty of work to be done here.
I think that's wonderful, and, I'm sure a lot of private institutions do that, where they go to other places and look at how things are done. I wish that other, our government sort of level was more like that and could... I think that anybody can learn from other... If somebody's doing something that you want to do, it would behoove you to go and learn what works and what doesn't work so that you do what works. And there's just not that perspective in places that would make all the difference.
Yeah, and that's New Colossus does. We're really passionate about that. Whenever we go to a training, we say, "Listen, tell us what you do. Like, tell us about your day and things. We want to know how you're potentially coming into contact with victims." And then we work with them to kind of say, what if we did this? What if we asked this question? What if we implemented this form here, or to track this and this? And it's never let us stand up here and tell you what you're doing wrong and you're missing victims and you're not doing this right. And that's pretty different compared to a lot of organizations. Sometimes organizations get up there with, and they're on their soapbox and they're like, this is a problem and you're not doing anything about it, and they point fingers. And,
like those parents.
Yeah.
This is how it's done. This is how it should be done. If you're not doing it, then screw you.
Yeah. So it's like we really meet them where they're at, and we're like, you're already seeing trafficking victims. It's been going on for a long time. They're coming into contact with you in your daily life. How can we maybe spot it? How can we talk about these red flags and maybe report it and stuff like that? So we've seen huge success in that, in a sense of building bridges versus going in and yelling at people for not doing their job right.
Right.
You hear a lot in the media about South Dakota and specifically Sioux Falls being like major hubs for human trafficking. Do you believe that's true? And if so, why do you think we are a hub for it?
I think it happens everywhere. I think we're a hub in a sense that we're kind of in between all these metropolitan areas. Our interstates play a big role in it as well.
Sure.
The interstate's going right through. And I think, so like in California and Florida and things like that, they have their tracks. They, where there's demand, they're going to move these girls around. And so you don't have to really leave the state in California to hit all these metropolitan areas. But in the Midwest, we have what's called like the Midwest track. And so Sioux Falls is a hub, mainly because we're one of the more metropolitan areas. We're just a bigger area. And so it's kind of through Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota. Milwaukee's kind of in there a lot, stuff like that. Kansas City, just this Midwest track where they're kind of hitting all these metropolitan areas. So Sioux Falls is definitely
We're like on the circuit, basically.
Yeah, so we're kind of on that circuit. I know we get a lot of attention for Sturgis in the hunting season.
Yeah.
We talk about that because it's real, it's a thing. There's a lot of girls being brought here for Sturgis.
One of the stories, though, was kind of just stupidity, I think, on the part of the local police of setting up the sting for, baiting the people. But yeah, it's a problem. But yeah, I just think that some of the way that they deal with that is stupid. But anyway, go on.
See, my thing with that is, I can see your point, but then the other part of me is, they're also offering a 12-year-old girl. Like, the details kind of make me a little more for it. Because they're offering a 12-year-old girl. And so if someone's willing to purchase a 12-year-old girl, they gotta be done for. Let's get them out of this motorcycle rally. Yeah. So, but I totally see your point. I do. I totally see your point.
That.
Yeah. If they were, that detail there is enough to make me like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, if you're willing to purchase a 12-year-old girl, then I'm not going to call entrapment on that one.
Word, yeah, I agree.
The thing that bothers me about that, which I know I've mentioned maybe at least one other time before, is, well, it's fine that they had, the adults, when then, like, the age regression software type stuff or whatever it was that I remember reading. But, it's, and unless you're going to interrogate the people, like, what other places have you bought from?
Mm-hmm.
They're getting like the like just a few customers off the thing, but they're gonna be like, oh, who cares about them? There's more customers out out here. I don't know how that catches
Yeah.
the perpetrators of like the girls and the people selling them. I think it missed that point. Which is my big beef with it.
Absolutely. And so there's so many aspects of this because there's the demand, there's who's buying, and so you got to tackle that. Then there's also the exploiters. There's the people who are out there finding victims, and so you have to tackle all these different areas. There's one thing that New Colossus is working really hard on getting implemented here. It's called a John School, essentially. And so if you get busted for solicitation, trying to purchase, whether it's through a sting or there was actually a case that broke, you go through this, sometimes it's over weeks, sometimes it's 2 afternoons, but essentially you learn about trafficking, and you hear from a survivor of trafficking, you learn about the aspects of it, the force, fraud, and coercion that go into it, and things like that, and you really hear about the issue and why you're not just purchasing someone and supporting her choice and her livelihood. There's a lot that goes into that, and she could be a victim of trafficking, and it just kind of changes their mindset a little bit, and they're seeing that demand will go down if they go through these schools and really learn about it and learn about the fact that these girls are going through something, they're victims, they're not necessarily doing this willingly. So we really want to get that implemented because it is this issue where you have to hit all these different areas. You have to hit the demand and you have to hit the perpetrators as well. So
I think that's a great program.
Yeah, it goes back to the rehabilitation piece. Let's slap a bunch of fines on something and hope they don't want to do it again. And then we're also we're very pro law. We want these laws, we want these trafficking laws, whatever helps law enforcement get these guys put away as long as they can. But we're also dealing with traffickers. They're not rule followers. They're not going to be oh, shoot.
You got me.
They passed a law against that now. We can't do it anymore. They're not going to follow the law. So we still, passing a law is not going to end trafficking. It's definitely needed, but it's not going to end trafficking. We still have to do that preventative piece that we do. Yes, I'll call on you.
No, I am gonna say I did have a friend who was not convinced that. He was in a different state here, several states over. But it was an online friend who wasn't convinced sex trafficking in shady massage places was a real thing. So I had to educate him about it, and then he was okay, well, I will do, some research, and then he was oh, crap, I guess I won't be doing that anymore. I thought that was legal and just some, special treat that if you knew the right thing, you could get something cool, like going to a bar and a one-night stand type thing, but maybe more like that, and I had to say, no.
You're paying
No. Well, I know, but you know what I mean. But that's
for that guy, though. And plus, Kel Lansden stories on parlors here in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, but it was not in the
they totally
state, so
do the joke happy ending. I'm sure they did.
No, but
not a happy ending for this part.
Those articles.
Oh man, did they say that in the story?
No, but they. No, probably not. If we ever do a piece on something.
But I will say that just going back with a whole bunch of other reference back points or whatever, he was oh, I didn't realize this, thanks for educating me and not just unfriending me type thing for being a dumbass stuff. So it's being the whole supportive and not, well, you suck because you encourage that, blah 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 blah, but being okay, so now
I mean,
so that stuff works.
That whole what is that Midwest saying where you get more
you
something
get more
like
flies
tea,
on
like
honey,
honey,
or
yeah.
fly with honey than
Yeah. I mean, you also have to think, so the demand, they're going out and buying, and as much as I want to hate them and be how could you do this? You're perpetuating this problem. I'm what brought you here? Why are you doing this? They're still humans, and they still have, there's some sort of brokenness in them that is making them go out and do this. And so, why? Why are you doing this? What happened to you? And same with traffickers, to be honest. I mean, a lot of traffickers just grew up thinking that this was okay. A lot of times they've experienced abuse themselves. And they grew up in this lifestyle that this is how you treat women, this is how you treat other humans, and get your money and live your life. And they were never told that it's wrong.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's what you were talking about, speaking with kids or everyone about talking about relationships and what healthy relationships are, and if you do that early, the earlier.
Yeah.
Of course, if if you're in a foster home, it's very difficult because obviously those guys are. If you're foster parents and exploiting the foster kids, you're obviously two-faced. You're two-faced enough to get the kids, and then but it's important to show them. You can't always show them because they don't always have the access to. To healthy homes with healthy relationships, but that's the important thing is how you should treat other people and how they should treat you, really. You gotta demand, respect, which is, it's nice that, it's 2018, and there's definitely more equality than ever. So it's nice that people are speaking, women and everybody are speaking up, but like you said, it's meant to. But,
and that's when it's so in JDC. A lot of times people just think we meet with the girls, but one of our favorite groups is when we meet with the boys. And we meet with the boys, and I asked them at one point, I was like, why do you think that I'm in here talking with you guys? And they're like, so we don't be traffickers. And I was like, wow, I actually was looking for you to say, like, because boys are victims too. But it's like, that is an issue that we're hitting on. Like, a lot of times when we ask them, they are growing up and they're like, oh yeah, my uncle did that. Or they know these things. They know that their family.
Shitty family.
Yeah.
But it's out there. I mean, these people aren't falling out of the sky. It clearly is going on all around us.
Well, that's the thing. It perpetuates itself, It's, but then also it can bleed out and it can just happen.
Yeah, and sometimes, our conversations are obviously like, here's what human trafficking is, but also we were watching a Survivor video and one of the kids laughed because she said that her pimp slapped her, and he's like, oh yeah, pimp slap, and like laughed about it, and it was, I'm way more patient than Ashley, my partner, and she will even attest to that. She was like, she paused that video and she was like, let's talk about this. And we just kind of talked about how things like that perpetuate this in a sense, and using words like pimp to mean cool, pimp my ride. Speaking of 90s, I watch that show all the time, and it's like I never really thought about the fact that pimp my ride, and
I didn't give it to myself, but I may have had the nickname Little Pimp when I was in high school, but I didn't give it to myself.
Sure.
And there was a big pimp, so it's not like he was mine, but we were. But not like in reality, but this is what we're talking about, and that's why I don't go by that nickname anymore.
Yeah, because we throw those words around, and we even talk to girls too, and we're like, listen, you can't throw slut and whore and hoe, like those words around. Like, you can't just call someone that, because it could be extremely offensive if someone's maybe going through that.
Exactly, and then it can hurt their self-esteem, make them think,
they retreat even more.
Because that was, the thing with me is if you think I'm bad, I'm going to fucking play into that, and I will do that, and I will. That's how, everybody thinks that it's the opposite, and I better, counteract that and, prevent that. I was like, fuck that. I will make sure you know that I am that, okay, I'll be that.
They're told by their trafficker over and over, you're just a slut, you're just a hoe, like, you're my hoe, all this stuff. So then they go to school where, maybe they're going to be safe or something like that, and then people are cracking jokes about that, and they're like, that's right, I am a hoe. Like,
and Dave Chappelle ended his most recent special with talking about a pimp.
I was going to bring that up.
Pimp. Exactly,
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I
my
almost
goodness.
watched it the other night.
You better listen to that because it's important, or it makes it's.
First Natasha go, and then I have a thing.
Okay.
All right.
I was just curious if this whole idea of, it can't happen in this community, or that's someone else, not me, or if I just ignore it, it'll go away.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that plays, how big a role that might
Yeah.
play.
I'm gonna tag on to this one because this was one of my questions.
Oh, okay.
I had someone on Facebook that was like, we were talking about a similar issue to this, and they were just like, well, why would you ever talk to kids about this? Because you need to preserve their innocence, and she literally said it's like you shouldn't be educating them about things like this. And what do you say when you get that kind of reaction, or what Natasha's talking about?
It goes back to keeping our kids naive is not keeping them safe. And we even see, you can keep your kids away from phones and computers and all that stuff. What's going to happen when they go to college and they get a computer? They're just going to go crazy because they've never been told what not to do on it. Or, there was, and the reason we say that's the line of keeping your kids naive isn't keeping them safe is because Ashley was actually getting her nails done, and the lady doing her nails was asking what we do, and which is always an interesting question. I'm like, so what do you do? And sometimes I'm like, I have my own business. Like, I don't want to talk about it right now. But she asked, and Ashley kind of said, and the nail lady told the story of the fact that she grew up in a very small town, very conservative, like, parents were very strict, and she went off to college, and she goes, I literally thought that just everyone was good. People were good. I was never told that someone might be bad. Like, she just didn't know. And so she's like, I was in bad relationship after bad relationship, and I didn't understand why I was in these bad relationships. And that's when she was like, I was so naive to people's manipulation and like abuse and things like that. So when she said that, it just kind of was a light bulb for us, because we do get that, And it's almost like the whole drug movement. When we started talking about drugs, parents were like, you talk about it, they're going to want to do drugs. And stuff like that. And it's like, listen, they're hearing it. I mean, they know what it is. You want them to hear from a trusted source, not some random, person on Facebook.
Rumors from their friends or online.
And I say, like, I look at these parents and I'm like, listen, if you aren't going to talk to your kids about it, someone online is. I mean, and they're going to say this other version of it. They're going to say, they're going to promise this life, and they're going to promise all these things that they'll give to them, and it's going to be exciting and fun, and they've never been told otherwise, so why wouldn't they believe it? So it's just, we want to equip them so that they get that random friend request, or they get that person talking and, saying things to them, and, we want them to say, oh, I heard about this, or, I heard about the fact that you might promise me these things, and I thought this relationship was this, but now that you're doing this, it kind of seems like you're exploitive, and things like that. And we know it works, but yeah, we still get those, we can't talk about it, or it doesn't happen in our community, and you're making a problem out of nothing. We get that a lot.
Perpetuating naive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is, because they're naive. Because to think that.
Yeah.
One more silly thing, and then we're going to go into shameless plugs. The reference to the Chappelle show earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's important because, Seth, do you want to tell this or describe it, or maybe we shouldn't give it away? I don't know.
No,
It was about the attacking the mentally attacking the person, having that control over them. The pimp talked about in his book, and it's a big book, but talked about how he would manipulate these women, and how there was one particular story that Dave talked about of how this one younger pimp, or how he, when he was coming up, asked an older dude how he would get this girl to get in line, and gave him a really fucked up thing to do to her to get her to listen.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah, like to have that sort of in your back pocket of, oh, well, you do this.
Yeah.
Of, fucked up thing to a person to get them to submit to, or be submissive.
Yeah.
And them talking about, like, mileage, where they're like, if they're trained, they can look at a woman and go, this is how much I can get out of her before she breaks, and I can't push her anymore.
Yeah,
and,
so, he said as a trafficker, he could look at a girl and know, okay, she's only going to be able to do this before she this completely breaks her, which is asinine, because once is enough.
Yeah.
But, he says that, like, there's 500, and then he tells you the story of how he, tricks her, and it's really fucked up. And, and then he keeps her past that mark where he knows he's destroyed her inside, but he's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible person, why not be it? But yeah, so it's interesting to listen to that, and I think I think I got that book ordered, so I think I have it.
Oh yeah, they definitely, and I've watched numerous interviews with pimps and traffickers and things like that, and they're like, you got to break them, you got to break their spirit and make them, come to you for everything. And there's one pimp who his saying was always, dress them, feed them, keep them broke. It's like, you dress them, you feed them, but they never get the money. Like, and even pimps who are now, like, out of the life and stuff like that, they still just have this air about them when they talk, and I'm like, I still don't trust you, and I still don't like you. Like,
It's like once they've seen human beings in that way,
I don't
they
know if there's any
can't.
going back. Yeah, and he was recovered, and he like speaks about it and stuff like that. And one of the newscasters asked him like, how much money would the girls make, or how much money would the girls have? And he's like, I had the money. It's my money. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, that's, you can tell that that's still where his brain goes. Like, but yeah. So was Dave Chappelle like making jokes about it, or was he?
He was, of course, but no. What was he?
He was joking about it, but he was describing why he left Comedy Central, and I think he was using the story because he had been reading that book, and he was talking about it as an allegory for like manipulation and a feeling like you're under the control of others and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And his third set in these is like a really small one in a small club in LA, and it's very intimate, and it's very like it was a lot more talking about himself and his life and stuff like that. And so
exemplifying the conduct by any means.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, he was not like, this was hilarious.
Yeah.
No, it was. I felt like this was being done to me by another organization, kind of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
So
interesting.
People might be stupid and not, understand
not pick that up, but
yeah, there is.
That is the subtext.
It's not funny that the pimp. Anyway, there's stupid people out there. Sorry.
The Sioux Empire Podcast proudly presents this week's Shameless Plugs.
Okay, so this is the part of the show where you get up on a soapbox, not a literal soapbox. I don't even know what a soapbox is. Like that's an old Crete thing.
I don't even know what that is. Yeah.
And just talk about how people can help you, where they can donate, how they can learn more. If you need volunteers, this is where you tell them about that. This is the info dump about contacting and helping. And I figured this is a good time to talk about the online donation platform that you guys launched recently.
Yeah, so it's all the information for this new online platform is on our Facebook page. But yeah, so it's called Together with 2 R's. And we asked what was with the second R, and he's like, together.com was already taken.
Yep.
and he's like, I just think it looks kind of cool. And I was like, you're right, do what you want. But it was started by this couple, and they want to look at giving in a totally different way, because our generation, I don't know if millennials is the right word, because that's become like a swear word almost, like
Pretty much.
Yeah. But when they give money, they want to see where their money's going. They don't just throw money at problems anymore. We're looking at like, how is this actually going to benefit our society or our community? They don't want to just throw money at something. And they also want to know that their money's making a difference. And so there's these it's basically all these boxes, $1 to $150. And you pick a box and you donate that much, because asking one person for, $11,000 is a lot of money. But saying, hey, if you go pick this box and donate $20, then you've owned that box and we're that much closer to $11,000. So it kind of, if all those boxes get chosen, then we'll have got $11,000 something. And like I said before, with prevention maybe not being the sexy part of this issue, it's hard to get people to invest in it because it's not quantifiable. We can't say, like, we've prevented 300 cases of sex trafficking. We haven't been able to quantify that because the work is so new. I mean, people are just getting on board with, like, oh, hey, we could prevent this from ever happening in the first place. So you can donate on that giving platform, and all that money goes towards, obviously we use a lot of different curriculums. We kind of develop our own a little bit, but then also we learn from other organizations that are doing what we're doing, and they're really getting on board with the prevention movement. So we learn from other organizations, we get their curriculums, work through it with the kids. It kind of keeps us in JDC and in LSS and able to take these groups further. Because like I said, that's our goal for this year, is really developing those groups more. Like, we're in there, we talk about trafficking, but it's like, now what? Like, I want to go deeper into those conversations and into these issues that these kids are going through. So yeah, we obviously have some need for volunteers around events and things like that. We usually post those on our Facebook page as well. We don't have a huge need for volunteers, only because we're so small right now.
Sure.
It's just us that go and do the talking about trafficking, but we want to grow that and educate people so that they can talk about trafficking as well. But yeah, so you can go to that platform, the Together platform. I want to say we're a little over like a couple $100 now. There's probably like
Nice.
10 boxes that have been taken. So we want to get people to go grab that box and do that. And if that's not your cup of tea, you can go to our website, and there's the contact form, the donate form, all that right on our website, thenewcolossus.org.
And we'll link to all this in the show notes,
Okay.
so people know.
Yeah, and if you think of a place that needs a training, reach out to us. Shoot us an email. We're pretty, low key to where we'll develop it with you if you want to hear about this and not that, and develop a protocol for this, but maybe not that. We work with you in a sense that everyone needs to hear about it, and everyone needs to own their piece in this trafficking fight. But you don't have to be Polly and Ashley. You don't have to be standing up in front of kids talking about it, but you can own it in your own little realm of
Sure.
life. But yeah,
Alrighty.
is that a good enough
That's
plug?
perfect.
I'm like, is
Yeah.
that a plug? 'Cause
That-
we're really bad at giving our shameless plug, because we're like, oh, if you want to donate.
Yeah.
We're kind of bad.
Donate
That's
to
why we
our
like this
terrible
segment for
movie.
everybody at the end, because it's
Yeah.
like we usually have a guest
Yeah.
that has something to promote.
Yeah.
Natasha, since you're talking up, what's your plug this week?
I'm gonna plug my meds again
Okay.
because I'm increasing and I have never been on this high a dosage before,
Okay.
and it's cool-ish. I didn't sleep well last night.
Aw, that's too bad.
Yeah, but
Okay.
smiley face.
Dustin.
I guess I'll plug my Facebook page. It's it's the Art and Tattoos of Dustin Burry.
Look at those arms, people. Look at those
No,
arms.
Show the arms, Dustin. Show the camera. Show the
Yeah,
camera.
show
So
the camera.
Okay, so the link to the page is m.facebook.com/DustinBurry636.
Where
Very
does
cool.
636 come? Want to know a
Well,
double plug?
that comes from my Green Jello number, Green Jello franchise number.
It sucks.
Seth, what do you got for us this
Well,
week?
in line with today's topic, and perhaps pertaining to the victims of maybe a possible treatment or therapy to get over that trauma, which I've been recently doing, which is fun. Oops, I've said too much. No. But it's EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's this dope kind of technique to processing trauma that was created in the 80s, so it's pretty fresh as far as that. But I think it works, and I think I like it. So if you have, access to that, if you've been through some terrible shit, sometimes, just there's possible things that you can do to get over this sort of emotional trauma that happens, and fortunately people have invested their lives into, or invested their time into trying to find a solution or some way to repair that, because if you've been through this, there definitely isn't like give up hope. You should still have that drive. So that's my plug.
Alrighty. Well, this week I'm going to shamelessly plug another the SiouxEmpire.com property coming up here. We are discontinuing QAB, or Queers After Beers podcast. And Emily, our old friend Emily Georgiou, former host on this program, she is going to launch a paranormal and mysteries podcast along with Ari Show from Chaos Reigns. And it will be called Midnight America. And when we get more details and the website up and everything like that, I will post all of that on our social media for you. So be sure to check that out. That's my plug for this week.
Wait, I forgot my other plug.
Okay.
It's Paula Dean from the new Colossus. She came on the podcast today.
Yay!
She didn't run away.
It's always a good sign.
After 2 possible times, she chose to stay. So thanks.
Then more than 2, I think it was.
All right. Well, have a great week, everybody.
And insert it.
Yeah, I do the intro. You do the outro.
I gotta do the piano?
Well, no, but just do your own.
Do I need to get a video?
And then.